many homeless people are there in Portland, in the Portland metro area?
So they do a annual street count about every 2 years, and they kind of justify, or they base the numbers off of how many individuals they physically can see, and then can kind of estimate into the individuals that are, camping where they're out of facility or might be staying in a car somewhere, just where they can't count them. So the last homeless count, they probably estimated between 3,000 and 4,000 in Multnomah County alone, and that's just individuals who are literally homeless, who don't have anywhere to stay, who, sleeping on the street, sleeping in cars, sleeping out of sight too.
So how does your program work?
We basically will bring people in to one of our 3 residential facilities. That's the ground floor here where we're at is a 90-bed men's program, but we also have another 60-bed women's program and then another 90-bed men's program, and that's helping them get connected to a case manager, set up housing plan, get them into housing, help them with rental assistance, deposit, and then provide case management for them while they're in housing to make sure that they keep it. So that's the main way we get people into housing, but we also serve them in our drop-in day center by doing really immediate services like showers, restrooms, laundry, facilities, and getting them connected to other supportive services that they can use.
How long have you been open and how did it begin?
Transition Projects has been around since 1969. They moved around basically just offering places for individuals who are experiencing homelessness to stay, and moved into the residential programs we're in now. So the building that we're in right now, we moved into about 3 years ago, and that program has been around probably for a couple decades, but right now where we're at with the 3 facilities, those 3 facilities have been around since probably the early 90s.
Around how many homeless stay here?
In the residential facility, there's 90 in this program, and then another 90 and 60 on the east side. So around 200 individuals each year are among the 3 programs.
Based on a large quantity of homeless people, how do you personally think it could be changed?
The big issue that we are facing is a lack of vacancies, a lack of available rentals, and not just available, but affordable rentals as well. There's a really high level of competition for the rental market in Portland, and the individuals we help don't have credit history, don't have rental history, might not have jobs, might not have income. So kind of addressing homelessness that way is really, really difficult without the resources that we help them with. But even with the resources such as rental assistance, we still depend on the rental market to have vacancies to place our participants in housing. So
there's a certain belief about the homeless demographic. Based on your personal knowledge, who exactly are the homeless?
It's a really wide range of individuals facing a lot of different barriers. I think in Portland alone, just the level of affordable housing is really, really low. So the people that are affected by that aren't just individuals that are dealing with mental illnesses, dealing with drug addictions. It can be anyone who might have lost their job. It affects a lot of individuals, and it's a housing issue, but it's also a poverty issue as well. So it really goes beyond just the typical idea of what most people think of when they think of homeless individuals.
Within Oregon,
With Oregon, do non-secular institutions provide more shelter than secular institutions?
I think that secular institutions probably have more emergency-based shelters. The non-secular institutions, we're technically a non-secular institution. We receive money funding from Multnomah County and the city of Portland. So that funding is always not guaranteed. It's in flux because it's it's part of the city budget, it's part of taxpayer budget. So it kind of comes and goes, and what we can do really depends on how much of that money is set aside for our programs. So I think that there's definitely a good balance of both secular and non-secular groups, because I don't think any one group can kind of tackle this issue by themselves.
You speak to many people that come to the shelter. What is the most touching story you've heard?
So I generally work with our volunteers. So I think what I hear back is we have people coming from the public that want to help our individuals get into housing. So a lot of the times it's really just creating one-on-one relationships with people and kind of bringing humanity into it, where, you know, a lot of people just view homelessness and homeless individuals kind of as one entity, but there's just a lot of different individuals that have different stories and come from different walks of life. That really could, it could be any one of us could end up in situations like that. So I think just kind of having the public come in and change their view on really, you know, how the homeless population is made up, who it affects, and really kind of just getting involved with that is really what I find touching and what I find really interesting. In Portland, a lot of individuals are interested in coming and helping out, so that's something cool that I see every day working here.
Portland implied a 10-year plan to change the homeless crisis in the city. Were you aware of this, and if so, what was your contribution to it?
So we definitely, since we're funded through the city, we're definitely a part of their 10-year plan to end homelessness. That is something that it's more of a setting milestones. I don't think anyone really thought that ending homelessness is something that you can do in 10 years. I think it's just something to set the bar and then be able to assess what you're doing, your work is doing 5-10 years down the line, and just evaluate what's working. And then the goal is definitely to address homelessness, get as many people into housing as possible, but the factors in that change on a daily basis, on a yearly basis. So it's important to kind of set those milestones, but also be flexible and changing in the ways that we address them.
How many beds do you have in the facility, and how quickly do they get occupied?
So this facility is 90 beds, 45 of those beds are reserved for veterans. Those basically are, you know, they're never open for more than a few days. We have a wait list that's around 2 to 3 months to get into one of the programs. So people are calling to check in on the wait list. They're stopping in to check on the wait list, and once their number's called, they're immediately placed, have the intake, get the bed reserved, get connected with the case manager, and then start their housing process. So, you know, once there's a bed that's open, it's usually taken within a day. And we also have other agencies that are calling us that we share beds with because they don't have the ability to house their clients. So we have our own wait list, and then there's other agencies that are using those beds as well. So it's definitely a juggling act of, you know, whoever has the person that's ready to come first for that bed is going to grab it and get connected to a case manager.
I have a question for you. Do you guys plan on expanding the program?
I know that we want to. So right now we have an emergency shelter program, which is different than the residential program, which is dedicated to 70 sleeping mats for women each night. And that's the only emergency style program that we operate, and that tended to only be in the winter months it was from November until April. So recently we've tried to extend that. We're trying to get funding to extend it year round. Got it extended until June, but the big thing with expanding any of our programs is a building facility, you know, a space to house individuals. The city has really strict guidelines on how many shelters can be within one area of each other, just as far as density goes. And the thing is, in this area of Old Town, that's where a majority of the resources are that people that are staying in the shelter need. So it definitely needs to be in an area close to this area, but there's a lot of shelters currently in the area. So there's a lot of variables that come into that, and the big one is facility, being able to pay for a facility and operate it. So the building we're in right now is the City of Portland, the Housing Bureau, Home Forward, basically built this building and we rent it from them really at a very affordable rate to be able to run our shelter and our agency out of it. So if there were a partnership like that, that would definitely work with us. But you know, it's kind of the same thing. The market for any kind of business or housing is really competitive and really expensive in Portland at the moment. So it's definitely expanding is something we need to do. So it's just a matter of funding and being able to afford it. So.
Do you guys take in students?
We do as far as volunteer roles, we have brought in students interning to basically work with either with case management to kind of shadow and help them administratively and just kind of get a feel for what their day-to-day is. And then we just have the general volunteer roles for the public, so people coming in to teach classes, to run our computer labs, do meal providing. So there's a lot of different ways people can come in, but particularly for students, we have had a few that come through and can do that for service, so their service hours for credit at their institution too. So.
Are there any percentage of students that are homeless that come in for your residential spots?
So it's a little bit difficult. We mainly only work with adults in our residential facilities. So if they're 18 and over, they can be in one of our residential programs. If they're under, we have to refer them to an agency that works mainly with youth. But there are a lot of different agencies that have a focus that will most of the time fit someone's needs. So if we can't help them, we'll try and get them connected with another group that can. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Any other questions?
What's your position here?
I'm a volunteer coordinator.
Oh.